right, welcome everybody. Today we're doing chapter 5. Yep, chapter 5. And today what we're gonna do is go to the chapters all the way, the chapter all the way to page 211, I think. Yep. And then I'm gonna make it a little bit more forensically by looking at SQLite within I'm sorry, JSON within a SQLite database, which I think is going to be really useful for everybody. All right, so let's get this show on the road. So for this chapter, we were talking about putting some things together, right? We know how to do imports and importing modules, and we know how to use, some of these different functionalities like functions. We know how to define functions. We know how to call functions, right? And in this chapter, we're adding a couple of things. The first thing we're adding is importing this module called Flask, okay? And this is pretty neat. As you read on the book, Flask will handle for you everything in regards to dealing with pretty much a small web server on your computer. And they don't say it like that, but I think that's a good way of describing it. It's a little web server on your computer. It will, if you request a web page from this little web server, this little Flask web server on your computer, if you request a particular URL, it's on you to do the code necessary to, return something to that browser that's doing that request, okay? The book takes some pages explaining briefly how a browser, server, web server communication works, but I'm going on the assumption everybody knows that in the class. Okay, now, so it's pretty cool. So we have to pip install this little module, right? Did anybody had any problems with it? Give me a 0. If you didn't have any problems, give me a 1.
If you have, if you have problems, give you a 1?
No, I should have worded differently. Let me say it again. If everything went well, everything was cool, give me a 1. Okay, good. And also it's pretty straightforward. Like we do, like pip install, follow the instructions. Good. And Jesse explaining that anybody wants any more details from Flask, happy to help. So we appreciate that. Okay, so we do the import, and then we do another import, and at the end of the page 211 for vsearch, which is a module we already had done previously. So you can see on screen here, I have vsearch.py in the same directory as my script, as we discussed previously, right? If I want it on a different place, we might use the dot notation that I showed you in a previous class, or we would have to make it a module so we can pip install it, like the Flask module, for example. Okay. And I'm happy to notice here that I talked about name last couple of classes and main. And I'm happy to see this here because I didn't realize the book was going to address it. So here you see the importance of this dunder or double underscore variable called name, right? That the Flask class or module needs it in order to start, right? You need to provide it what's the module that's calling it. And to kind of underscore some of the things that we taught previously, I took the extra effort of putting here, printing the contents of name as it's running from the script, and then printing the contents of name, let me rephrase that again. I'm printing the contents of name from the script, and then when Flask, actually the module runs, it also provides you the name on the screen. So let me show you that. Notice here that as I'm running directly from the script, it's calling main, but the moment Flask, which is a module, accesses the name, right, it takes the name of the script. You see that there? Which is on top here, hello Flask, and not without the extension, which is some of the things that we talked about last time. So the contents of main depends on from where it's being executed, from the script, from the module, or straight from the other module. It all depends. Okay. But like the book said, the cool thing about name is that, and I'm going to read it because I think it's the best explanation, even better than mine. It's set to the name of the currently active module, right? Since we're running the script here, our main script is hello Flask, then it will give me the hello Flask name. Okay, so I just want to show you that as part of recapping some stuff that we discussed previously. Okay, the third thing we learned is decorators. This part, functions we know, so I'm not gonna discuss those, we understand those, but decorators. And this is pretty neat because I've been pretty weak on it, and now I'm starting to build my knowledge on it by going through the book with you all. And notice here how the decorator starts with an @ and notice how it references the Flask object, okay? And if you, again, kind of recapping, remember that when we call this function, this module, we assign the data execution over to the app variable. And what it gives is an app object, right? That app object has methods in it, okay? Called route, for example, that's one. And then we provide to that method certain arguments for it to be able to work. And again, I'm using these words because I want you to get used to the proper terminology when you do some of this coding, right? Everything in Python is an object, okay? You got a module. Also, you can look at it as also kind of like function, right? And you provide an argument. This object with the dot notation, you can access functionality in it, these methods, okay? And you provide arguments. And I repeat it again, just to start having your ear get used to those words, okay? The @ symbol indicates it's a decorator. So when the decorator starts, it says, okay, from the app object, I want to use the method route when we find the symbol here, right? This character, right? And immediately after, we're gonna execute this function, okay? That's pretty much what a decorator does. Whatever a decorator says, it will be applied to whatever's under it. Usually, it's either a function or a class, but for our purposes, decorators will be changing the behavior of the function that's right beneath it, okay? Again, decorators will change the functionality of the function that's immediately beneath it, okay? So Python goes through it, right? Keeps this in memory, and then says, okay, the object app, I wanna use the method run with no argument. So that means that we're gonna start running our web server. So when we hit run, right? It goes here. It shows this on the screen. It says hello Flask. We explain why, because it's a variable name, double under for name. And it tells me, okay, the web server is running here at this address, right? And we know there's no place like 127.0.0.1, which is home on our computers. And again, if you're not familiar with it, look for a definition of localhost, and you will get some info on that. Okay, so I should put this here so it makes it more clear. Okay, so notice that it says hello world from Flask. Here, I don't have this symbol here, the what's that, the slash or backslash, the slash, right? I don't have it, but you know, it assumes it by definition in the browser. So what the script does is, okay, if you're hitting this IP at this port and you're going to the root of it, right? I'm gonna provide to you, you're gonna execute this function, which pretty much returns to the screen or to the browser, hello world from Flask. How you give that to the browser and how does that work? You don't have to worry about it. Flask does that for you. This is pretty neat about Python, how modular it is. You can take other people's modules and it abstracts all of that. I don't have to worry about, you know, three-way handshakes and making packets to send over, none of that. Flask does it for me. If I were to change the URL, right? Let me just copy this and, you know, change it to this, then it'll execute the code or the function underneath it, which is, again, me or us calling our another module, providing the arguments and getting the results, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. All the stuff that we've done beforehand kind of prepared us to understand this piece of code, from the imports to the assigning of creation of an object, how to access methods within that object, how to use a function, and learning now that we can change the behavior of this function based on a decorator, right? And this is pretty neat because I could then go and you know, just do another function with a different decorator on top and provide different functionality, okay? Or even add to it if need be, without having to change the function itself, okay? That's pretty much it for this class, okay? This concept has taken, the decorator one has taken me a little bit of time to understand. The book, I think, explains the examples pretty well. In the future, we will see how to create our own decorators and how does that work, okay? Any questions? If everything is good, give me a 1. Okay, see, okay, perfect. All right, now, you may ask yourself, when will I use this? There might be some scenarios, and I will discuss some of those possible scenarios in the next class. What I'm gonna get to now is, I'm gonna stop my running of the code. I wanna go and show you this particular database that I have here. All right, if you haven't, go check your Discord. In Discord, I placed this database and I placed a script that you can use for this database. This database is from Slack, which is the instant messaging collaboration program. It's pretty popular in businesses, even more so now with the whole COVID thing. And when I started working with this app, I want to figure out how do I get the chats on this app. There was no support at the time of the tools. Now they do. Now Axiom and Celebrite, and they all have support. But back when I needed it, they didn't. So what I did was I pulled out the database from the for the app. And again, how do we pull those databases? Where are they? That's another, that could be a full class. But I figured out this database, and I noticed this database had all these different tables. And obviously the one that says messages, kind of, it's a clue. That might be where the stuff that I need is. So I pressed it, and I started analyzing that, or looking at the data there. And I found this. I found a column called message blob. And in message blob, when I go in it, I figured out, oh, there's might be information that I care about. But if you notice that it starts with a little, not bracket, but the squiggly bracket, I guess. And then I see here, like in double quotations, some text, and then a colon, and then a 0 and a comma. Just by looking at this first, how this is formatted, I know this is a dictionary. Or JSON, right? If it's serialized, it's JSON, deserialized in Python, a dictionary. So immediately I know it's a dictionary, right? Key value pairs, comma, key value pair, comma, key value pair, etc. So this is interesting. I'm seeing inside the SQLite database key value pairs in a field. And as I go through it, I find one that's pretty interesting. This a key called text. And inside of it, I see here like @ which is a username, and you figure that out based on another table here, channel ID, has joined the channel, and then like a timestamp, and then type is a message, right? And as I go through it, let me show you another one here that has more meat to it. Look at this one, text. Right now, anyone in your workspace can invite a new member. If you like, you can blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then the messages that I care about are inside this database, inside a column whose fields are composed of JSON. So how do we address this, okay? The first option is, okay, let's take out the JSON out of the fields, right, the databases, deserialize it, turn it into a dictionary, right? And then look for the key value pairs that we want, and then do our report. That's one way, and that's not wrong. That would be correct. I'm here to show you, and it's not straight Python, but a different way, using SQLite itself, okay? So how are we gonna manage this? Oh, and by the way, you may ask yourself, why are apps putting JSON inside SQLite, right? And I believe it's because since these apps are multi-platform, they work in iOS, in Android, on your computers, apps that are, or programs that are individual for them, the browsers. These app developers have decided to use JSON as the overall data structure to exchange messages and data from app to app to app, right? So it's easier for them, in a sense, just have the SQLite database that we're used to, and then just put that data as it comes down from the server, so it's being sent out in a JSON format. So all the multi-platform implementations of Slack use the same data type, which is JSON, to exchange chats and whatever information it is. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And you'll be seeing more of that, of this JSON inside of it. And same thing with protobuffer, we'll discuss in the future, and same thing with realm databases, which is something that we'll also discuss in the future. Okay. I had a good comment here. JSON is the best way to pass information between apps. There we go. It's harder for us humans to read, right? And there's an opinion on YAML, but you know, we can definitely, there's definitely different developers go different ways. Eventually, usually the business, the industry settles in a few. So yeah, YAML might be one that people might settle on it. But for your cases, you will still find a lot of JSON, right? So what do you do? I'm gonna take as an example. Let me go here to my notes. Oh, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you something, and it's called the JSON 1 extension. What is that? So your SQLite, if you have a recent version of SQLite that you're using, for example, in SQLite browser, there's a functionality called JSON Extract, and I'm gonna highlight it here. If you press here on this link, it will take you to it. And what JSON Extract does, and this is kind of confusing to read, but I'll explain it. What it does is it's able to look into a field in a SQLite and give you the ability of plucking out whatever you want from that JSON and creating a column for it in your query results, which is super neat, right? Because you don't have to really worry about managing that data. You just pluck out what you need within your query, SQLite query. So how does that look? Let's look at here. Let's use number 2, the row number 2, to give you the example. So this one, again, we have our JSON here, and I'm gonna look for where's the text, right? Text here. It says first message. Okay, so again, I have to go through and again, this is important. Do your research. You have to go through all your JSONs and making sure that, you know, what's the key value pairs that you need. So I know I want text. So my first line, I'm gonna write select. I'm gonna select, actually, you know what? I'm gonna I have it here. I'm gonna copy it here. Okay, so you're gonna select, you're gonna call the function JSON Extract, and then you're gonna feed it the column where the data is. So if I go to browse data, you'll see here message blob. You see it up here, right? So from that table, and the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna provide it a $sign. Okay, and here I'm saying texting JSON. That's how I'm gonna rename that column. But I'm gonna provide it a $sign. What does that mean? When you provide it, what am I missing here? Line 2, select. I copied it right. Well, I'm not gonna waste time figuring out what I missed. So use this one. All right, so when you provided a $sign here, what it does is it just shows you all the JSON, right? So I think of it as an anchor. It says, okay, this is JSON that's coming up. Okay, so it gives you everything. So honestly, there's no difference between looking at it just straight up. It keeps throwing me back. Just like this, or just putting the $sign. But this is important because now I can say, okay, from this JSON, the $sign, from the whole thing, dot. What do I want? Let's try text and see what happens. You see this? Remember number 2, first message? So now I have that particular value generated in a single field. Isn't that pretty awesome, right? These are all the track it, you're not marked as active, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty neat. So now if I say, okay, let me add a few more fields. Let's add who's talking, right? Because that might be helpful. Or at least the ID of the person that's talking. Let's see, where is it? User ID. Let's add user ID. So I want select user ID, comma, and run it. Okay, so this user ID said this user ID said that, right? And then we start building our responses. What about dates? So there's a timestamp here. Let's put TS. And I think it's a good practice to put it at the beginning. All right, so at this timestamp, and you're like, well, this timestamp is not really understandable. It's not really human readable. What the heck is this? So I'm gonna cheat because I've done this already. And I have here already a conversion for it. Actually, I'm gonna put it on top because I wanna see the human readable first. So what am I doing here? I'm calling another function from SQLite called DateTime. I think we've done this before. Here I'm kind of explicitly saying from messages, but I don't really need to, and I won't. So keep it all the same. From the column TS, it's gonna be a UNIX Epoch timestamp. I'm changing it to my local time, but this is not a good practice, so I'm just gonna take this out. We're not gonna do this. Just gonna show it as UNIX Epoch time. That's it. All right, there we go. So you got your time and your timestamp, right? Human readable and non-human readable, and the user ID and the message. And you can add more things. Let me add one more. Let's look for another field within the JSON that we will want to pull out. So let me go now to row 6, and there's one that's pretty cool here. So if you look at your JSON here, you will see here that there is a key, if you can find it, called files. Let me see here, line, MIME type, file type, ID. Here we go, files at the top. Okay, I picked this one because, again, based on what we learned so far, this will help you. Notice how files is the key, the 2 colon there, and then this is the value. But look at the value. The value starts with what? Can you see that? That's a bracket. So within the bracket, we have a what? A squirrely bracket, right? And then key value pair. So we have a list, and inside that list, there is another JSON file. No need to fret, no need to worry. We got this, right? Remember, if we're addressing list, we do it by the index location. So again, as part of your research, you look at the JSON, you figure out where's the JSON end? Where's the bracket end? Oh, it ends here. Okay, it ends there. And as I look through it, I noticed that, you know, the squiggly line also starts and ends all the way at the bottom. So this list has only one index location. That's it. There might be more, but in this case, all this is just one location. So how does that look? If I go here and say, okay, I want to do JSON extract. I'm going to build, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense right now. We're going to show it and that'll make sense. Message blob, I'm going to call this list for now, list in JSON, so to make it distinct, okay? I don't want text. I said I want files, right? And I said that I looked at it and that list only has one index location, right? Let me see what I did wrong. Oh, I forgot the comma here. There we go. Let's do it again. Okay. So notice here how if I accessed files and that location in files, look, I get everything. I get the whole JSON, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that now that I have the JSON, what do? I put what do I want, by the way? What do I want? I want, in this case, let's pull out from this JSON, I care for, let me see here. I'll just pick one, just to pick one. I think I saw, where's file? I think file type is a good one. File type, it's a JPEG. There are JPEGs or JPEG is coming through. So let's put file type here. Dot file type, okay? And let's see what we get. Oh, there we go. So you notice that actually, and let me just copy this so you can see them both side to side. When I learned about this functionality, I fell totally in love with it because it really simplified how I deal with JSON within SQLite databases. Let me call this one file type. File type in JSON. Okay, so let's run it. Oh, I forgot the comma again. I always have that bad habit. In case you don't know, whenever you finish a line in SQLite, you need a comma except the last one before the from.
Sorry, you might have missed. There's a typo in file type. I think 2 eyes. It looks like there are 2 eyes.
Oh yeah, sorry. There we go. All right, thank you. All right. So notice, so I was saying, yeah, every line in a SQL statement, SQL query, ends on a comma, except the last one before the from. Why? Because that's how it is. I bet there's a good reason for it, but we're not gonna get into it. All right. So notice how if I looked at the data itself, right? I looked at my data, and I figured out based on what I know, where's number 6, that this key is files. Inside of it is a list, and inside that list, I got a JSON key value pair structure. And then my thought is, okay, how many index locations does file have? Is there like files bracket 0, 1, 2, 3? How many? So I looked and I noticed there's only one. So I only need to address, sorry about all the switching around, address files 0 to get the JSON inside that index location, right? If I put files 1, it will not work. Let's just hit it. See, it's null. Why is it null? Because there is no index location 1 in files. It's only one location, which is index location 0, okay? But notice, again, this is part of you applying what your understanding of JSON and dictionaries, right, to SQLite. I think it's pretty awesome. And then after we discovered, okay, there's only one index location, there's only one JSON inside of this, then I can access it using the normal dot notation. Okay, dot, key, and value, and you can go from there like that. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, the comma's getting me. If that makes sense, give me a 1. All right, awesome, awesome. Okay. So now what I would like you, and again, this homework I will not discuss in class. This is homework for you. What I would like for you to all do is try to add this script, this query to your scripts for parsing, right? I want you to do a script in Python that opens the Slack database and has a query that parses out. Let me just move out of this page. Parses out the JSON within it. Pick whatever fields you want. At a minimum, have text, okay, and parse that. What I won't discuss that homework. What I will do is at some point discuss with you all how to use regex to identify files. And I say that because if you look at the file name, let me minimize this. If you look at the file name of the database, hope you can see it there. It's tcjrx blah 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 1db, and there's no extension, right? So sometimes you might need to identify the files that you want as you're going through a directory of files. You might need to figure out, okay, what I'm looking for is this amount of characters long, and it uses, you know, the alphabet and numbers to identify it, right? That's one way. Or you might want to find something in a directory by a combination of the path, right? If a file with this characteristics is contained in this path, right? In this folder, within this folder, then I want to execute some operations on it, which is your coding, right? I want to run this query. I want to, if it's JSON, I want to deserialize it, whatever it may be. Hopefully that makes sense because I'm not showing it to you. I'm just kind of verbalizing it. But that's part of what I try to show you in my more advanced code, where I am looking inside a folder, listing the contents of the folder, and then in this case, I'm going by the extension. This is from a couple of last classes ago, right? Well, sometimes you might need to go not only by the extension, but you might need to go by the path to find what you're looking for. You might need to go by a regular expression to be able to find what you're looking for. And again, if you're not familiar with regular expressions, that's okay. We're gonna together learn a little bit about it in the future. But for your own personal homework, try to add that database to your script, of your parsing script. So your script should be able to parse at the end of the day the JSONs for what was the app for Kick? Oh no, for Discord, sorry, and parse the database for Kick, and then parse the database for Slack. That's kind of like your self-growth homework. Okay, it's not. I will not discuss it in class. What I will discuss in class will be pages 2012, and I think I have it here on the Discord. You can go on Discord and you can check the page out, but start with, let me just look it up here. No, not friends here. 242. Thank you so much, because I was not finding it. There we go. So all the way to this page here to the end. Okay. No, not page 2000. All right. So that's all I got for today. And I'm going to start the recording now.